And good Saturday, kind sirs and ladies. I hope that's the right way to say things. And welcome to another edition of Top Draw, episode 20 of all episodes. Thus, it is the double-decker of episodes, just like a big bus. Anyway, I'm Pseudo, and I'm joined with Dr. Marshmallows today.
Greetings, mortals.
And we are, of course, as a reminder, pre-recording this episode because time does weird things for us. In fact, last week, for those of you who showed up live, you saw that time didn't just screw around with us, but we got little tiny chewas that came in and ate the wires. That was a most unfortunate event to find ourselves involved in. But anyway, welcome to Top Draw. It is our Saturday show all about TCGs, SCGs, and CCGs. And we are continuing in our further discussions about Battle for Gia. For those of you who are unfamiliar with how our shows work, what we are doing is we are taking one single solitary game, breaking it down into 5 core components, and rating, reviewing, and discussing them. This is not your grandmother's game review, nor is it your father's game review, nor is it your aunt's, uncle's, cousin's, or third cousin, fourth removed game review either.
Okay. I actually, a bit of an aside, because we're on relations and all that sort of stuff. I understand how Americans do cousins and stuff now, thanks to CPG Grey. So that people who don't understand that on YouTube, YouTube.
Yes.
Learn stuff for the day.
Oh, yes. There's your homework. Besides playing the game, we're also going to be doing this. Right. So, let us start off by, before we get into the actual content of the show, Marsh.
Yes?
You're looking mighty awake. You're looking happy.
Yeah, it's early for once for me. Well, early-ish. It's only like 6 o'clock at night for me this week.
Yes, and it's only 9:30 in the morning for me.
God. It's crazy. It's normally like 10, 11 o'clock at night for me when we do these. It's fantastic to actually get a proper time. And then we go ahead and do the other Blizzard forecast top drawer thing. It's like 3 in the morning and cards happen. Trollden, you take over.
Math.
Yes. Exactly.
For those of you who are unaware, we do a special Top Draw segment for the Blizzard forecast, which revolves entirely around Hearthstone and pretty much some things. And I can't tell people. I can't. Damn it. Okay, I'll keep my mouth shut and just smile, and we will move forward. Right, so in our previous episode of this, which was part 3, we're now into part 4 for Battle for Gia. But in our previous episode, what were we discussing, Marsh?
Limited versus constructed, which was that was my area of expertise. We're folding into Pseudo's area of expertise this week, but last week we were talking about stuff like deck construction, how the constructed system works, the fact that there's no limited in the game, how you could make limited work and why limited works, and the advantages of participating in both. And we generally trolled each other and stuff like that.
And Marsh sang.
And I sang.
Yes.
The llama song.
The llama
song. It was amazing.
Song.
You should go see it.
You should totally go see it. It's the quick bite in case you're curious. But yes, so we discussed limited versus constructed. And now we move into an area that is very near and dear to my heart, which is actually into design. And it's not just the design of, say, the game itself or what makes the game special. We're also talking about the UI and the user experience. Now, I will be the first person to tell you that in my years of development for not just web, but for applications as well, the number one thing I stress is usability. Because if your users can't use it, what's the point?
Yeah. I'm personally all about intuitive design. If I need stuff to tell me how to use stuff, it's not working properly.
You know, one of these days, and we're going to have you in our game jams for the Data Mine, which is our Thursday show for game development by game developers. We're going to have you in our game jam, but you and I think, need to come up with our own version of a TCG, CCG, SCG, and just see what we can produce based on our own knowledges and expertises, which will be great.
Oh, good lord.
Yes. And we could totally do it in such a manner that we have cards from the hosts of all the various shows. And I should totally have like the most OP powers and everything because I'm on like all of the shows. And that's like my stats.
Pseudo the organizer. You have to draw extra cards and you have like extra turn phases and just crazy stuff.
Organizer of Chaos. That is exactly what my title happens to be, along with Seneschal, along with a lot of other titles. I just have too many. I'm just busy. But yes, could you imagine coming up with our own TCG or CCG or SCG or a combination thereof?
Sounds great in theory, but it's a game jam. We don't have enough time to do balancing.
Who cares? It's a proof of concept.
Oh, yes.
All we're doing is prototyping.
Anyway, back to the game.
Yay. But yes, back to the game. So, how is this particular show going to be modified, controlled, designed, and clarified for you who are watching? Because this is the first time we're doing it for a game in specific. And the best way to do this is to kind of give you our notes on it, because I think Marsh did an insanely brilliant job of linguistically pulling together words that sum up quite well what we're planning on looking at.
Oh, good lord.
So, when it comes to actually doing the innovation and the design, which is what this episode is all about, we are looking at investigating the graphical and mechanical fidelity of the game. What is the game doing differently? How well are they implementing it? And we're going to look at artistic and mechanic, as well as the effects that such assets have on gameplay. Pretty much. Now, we covered this slightly when we were talking about Hearthstone. You know, one of the things that made Hearthstone stand out was the fact that it does feel like a physical game. You know, you bang on something and something occurs. There's sort of this constant visual feedback you get. You throw your cards out and you have your minions show up. You have the sound effects that go with it. You know, it's just... For example, the more damage you do to the opposing player in one hit, the louder the crowd gets because they seem to get excited that you hit somebody for 36 points. Not saying that's ever happened to me. I have, however, been on the recipient of being hit for 31 points, and I wanted to smack that Miracle Rogue deck right outside the window, but I couldn't, and that's okay.
Brilliant Miracle Rogue. Yes, Hearthstone is a very visceral game, and it's purposely visceral. It feels a very specific way because that was the intent, to make it feel as though it was a physical card game just on an online medium. But that's as you could call it, the uniqueness of Hearthstone, I suppose. It's not every developer goes to that extent to get
has the
visceral feedback.
Or has the ability to, you know. Let's be real here. You know, they built that I believe on the Unity engine.
Yes.
And, you know, that itself has its own physics. So built-in physics in your engine makes things a whole lot easier to control. But that's what we're going to be looking at. Now, before we go into our opinions on it when it comes to Battle for Xia, we need to understand the importance behind it. Now, most people who have played TCGs in their lifetime are used to, say, playing solitaire with a deck of cards in front of them, although many people are used to playing solitaire on their Windows boxes or on their Debian boxes, or, you know, pick a distro and you've got yourself a box that can play solitaire. But generally speaking, card games are tangible objects, so you don't need to have, like, constantly changing awesomeness to the card backs and things like that, because it's kind of pointless. Because let's just say, for example, back in the good old days when you were sitting in the comic book shop playing Magic, or, you know, on the floor in your basement or what have you, hiding out from everybody while everyone thought you were, quote unquote, practicing Magic when you were just playing Magic. I still remember those days. And if you had different card backs, people would have an idea of what cards you had. So the card back has pretty much kind of, not completely because it has changed a little bit, but the card back for Magic the Gathering has stayed the same forever. But you get that kind of interaction. It's 3D. You're used to feeling these things. You have the beautiful artwork. And they actually put names of people who designed the artwork on the cards because, In all honesty, if you're going to hold a card in your hand, you want something pretty to look at. You want it to match its feeling. You know, if you're going to be playing, for example, Pokemon, the card game, in your hands, you want to see the cutesy Pokemon, the ones that you're collecting all, or what have you. And if you're playing something like Star Wars, which has its own TCG for those who are unaware of it, you want to feel the universe when you're looking at it. I mean, it's such an iconic IP, such an iconic franchise. We want to make certain that's available. So anytime a new IP is brought out and a new design is brought out for games or TCG or a CCG game, I'm just going to bloody call them card games because putting some kind of preference before it is just starting to get a little annoying. So CG. Okay, yeah, definitely card game because CG makes me think of something else, and that's a different show. But you want to ensure that whatever you design fits your IP, fits the kind of feeling you want to bring, and that the design choices that you make, not just in the code itself and the development cycle, like what engine you wish to use, what kind of platforms you're looking to actually have this particular game work through or work on, all works together to create a unique place. Because if you look like everybody else out there, no one's going to care.
Yeah. No one's going to play because they're going to play the other thing. But
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's about designing a world, isn't it?
It is.
You have to design... You're not just designing a card game. You're designing an experience, really. You're designing not just the cards, but you're designing the... If we take physical card games, for example, we'll take Magic the Gathering, because we always do, and it's easier. But you don't just design the cards, you design the backstory, you've got the lore, you've got the placement, the playmat, you've got, the card art isn't just art, it's action based or it's permanent based. Like you can look at just by looking at the art, you should be able to understand, at least in some part, what the card does. I really need to turn off the screensaver. This happens all the time.
It's only happened twice that I am aware of on our shows, so it's...
twice in the recordings.
Yes, in the recordings.
Yes. But it's about designing that world that goes with the game itself. And I think some developers forget this sometimes, that you need to have the rich lore as well as the very unique and pleasurable experience of actually playing.
And I want to point out that this is actually coming from Marsh, who never reads the story.
Oh, no, I couldn't care less about the story. Sometimes it's interesting when you hear snippets, but then you go...
In all honesty, if you write a really good background or a good lore for what your card game is about, or base it off of something that has a rich history or what have you, you've basically given yourself the cards in advance. Balancing, a different story. That comes kind of a little bit offshoot of that. But you've given yourself the different... I don't want to call them classes of cards, but the different styles of card, the different points behind the cards. I mean, for example, in Battle for Gia, we have 3 different types of cards. We have the Chaos, we have the Neutral, and we have the Order. And they impact each other. So if like we said in the last episode, you bring in an Order and a Chaos together into a deck, they're going to kind of stop helping each other because they don't like being on the same battlefield with each other. It just you can lose a lot of momentum, and I wanted to use the word impetus, but that's used differently inside Battle for Gia, so I don't want to confuse people who are interested or who are playing the game. But yes, so this is why it is so important for there to be a look at this, because so many people, like Marsh, just want to pick up the card games and play. But if you don't understand the kind of lore that's behind a story, if you don't understand why a card game exists in the first place, you can't quite understand why all of a sudden you have orcs hanging out with dolphins, and the orcs and dolphins apparently get along swell.
They get along swimmingly.
Swimmingly. Ching.
No. But I think you actually you glanced over something that I find really important, actually. It's the fact that it should be design is about not only having those great sort of backstories and stuff, but also having the stuff that's apparent even without understanding. So like the order and chaos thing, how they don't work mechanically, they don't work well together and all that sort of stuff. Even if you don't read the lore, even if you don't care about the story, you understand that that's part of the story because it impacts the gameplay.
Yes,
so I can tell that that's part of the lore because they don't work well together. So there's obviously something there, even though I don't know what it is. So that's how you get the backstory and design and the thematics across to someone like me as opposed to someone like Pseudo.
Exactly. Well said. Here, here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Get my little troll in there for you. Okay. Troll will be joining us later. Anyway. Troll will have already joined us. This gets confusing. No, I'm not even going to try. Math. Right. So let's take a moment and break down the two different parts that we're looking at. We're looking at artistic stuff. And artistic stuff involves everything from the world design that is created, which entails some lore, the UI itself, which goes beyond just what is the pretty picture on the card itself. It actually looks into the design of the boards, the design of the playing field, so to speak. Everything is looked in at that point in time. And of course, obviously, we will look at card art because in the end, you know, card art is what makes each card individually stand out. Otherwise, it's just text, and that's boring.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem in our game jam. All the text! All the text!
And then we're going to look at the mechanical side of things, which means we're going to look at, you know, what it takes to build decks in the game, what it takes to have things like the abilities working and finding a balance that is true balance, which is without real balance. It's a chaotic form of balance. It's a chaotic good balance where you don't want to have the true balance of everyone having equal in any way, shape, or form. You want variety and you want things to sometimes be a little more than another. And then, of course, we're also going to look at what it is that makes that game mechanically unique from another game out there. So, where would you like to start, Mr. Marshmallows?
I'm fine starting wherever you'd like, my dear.
Well, how about we just go in the order of stuff that we have things written?
Yep. I'm defaulting to your expertise this time.
Okay. Well, let's start off then with a very brief explanation of concept to fruition.
Sure.
Okay, because it helps to kind of look at that and we can touch on the various things that are impacted each step of the way. So it starts off with, I have an idea. Light bulb moment. Why don't we create a card game that does this? Usually, that's how it starts. Not always, but it starts with an idea. From that point in time, you could do, like we would in a game jam session, just create a prototype to see proof of concept. Can this actually work? So in this particular case, you know, there are a couple of different directions that Battle for Gia could come from, and I'm hoping that we can get in touch with the developers because I'd love to get them on for our last show because we can give them scores live and discuss things with them, but we'll see how it all works. It's all time, space, and shenanigans, and let's just say shenanigans. Timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. But you could start with I have this great lore idea, or it could start with, I have this great card game idea, but either way, you start with your idea. When you go to prototype it, let's look at what could have occurred in Battle for Gia. First is, hey, Marsh, I have an idea of quick skirmish card game where the reality is you only have to take out a maximum, maybe 8 turns. Maximum 8 turns. And you have a winner or non-winner. And it is really quick.
Sounds good to me. How are we going to do that?
Let's see. There are a lot of card games out there, but none of them have a situation where the quote-unquote hero does nothing except add bonuses. Maybe we should do that.
Maybe we should do that.
But that's not enough. Everybody wants to have that little extra bonus that makes them stand out. Let's throw a support character in there.
Sure, why not? How are we going to do that?
Well, let's not look at what we're going to code it in first. Let's take the concept and put it on paper, literally. Which means they may have taken time out to actually cut out paper, put it on the ground, play little games with themselves saying, does this actually feel like a fun mechanic or a fun game to play? Because in all honesty, if you're going to make a game, if you're not finding it fun, you shouldn't be producing it. A game in the end is entertainment. It makes a difference whether we're talking an MMO, a single player, an FPS, or a CG. Right. So when it comes to the world design that is offered to us in Battle for Gia, Marshmallows has actually paid no attention whatsoever.
No. No big surprise there, really. As I said, I default to you in this episode because it's callous of me to say I don't care, but
no, that's it. We represent extremes when it comes to card games, which is why we do the show together, because we do represent extremes. Yet we can see each other's points of view. Like you said, having a story is important. Now, in Battle for Gia, there is a battle going on. Something occurred where there was an intruder who kind of blew things up and knocked the entire universe out of balance. Completely and utterly out of balance. And basically, all of your card games and all of your little skirmishes are tiny little wars, tiny little skirmishes, literally, because the games are so short, I can't really call them wars. I literally see them as tiny skirmishes. And just...
Okay.
Tiny little skirmishes. But these tiny little skirmishes are occurring as you're trying to make your way to finding a balance for one side or another potentially. And that is where we end up with the case of, instead of having 8 different classes of cards, for example, things like entropy, time, shadow, moon spell, water, fire, earth, mountains, holy
Captain
novas, yes, all forming together from Cap. We end up with 3 choices, which actually impacts their game design. Now, if you went ahead and you tried to create a game where you have these tiny skirmishes and you have 8 different classes to choose from, you're actually going to lose development time because you're not building massive decks that can take 10, 20, 15 minutes to play. That's not the way this works. So by them limiting specifically to have 3 classes, and I say classes loosely because okay, orders. 3 orders in which to choose from. That's a much better choice of words. By them doing it that way, they can put more of a focus on what cards go into that. They could also put more design time because this is a small team. This is not your multi-million-dollar team sitting out there with tons of money that can just throw whatever they want at something. They have to decide where their resources are going to go. So is it going to go to the development of the art? Is it going to go to the development of the balance? Is it going to go to the development of the UI? Is it going to go to the development of localization? Is it going to go to support team? All of these little bits and pieces of resources are eaten up by the team itself. So by limiting it to 3, I think they made a very good choice.
Fair enough. Once again, it comes down to I don't care. There's cards to play with. You've put boundaries on which cards I can and cannot play with. I'm okay with this. This is something I have come to learn. But as I said, it's hard to say without sounding callous. But at the end of the day, you tell me there's three groups of cards that you can pick from to build your deck. I go, okay, get me some cards. Doesn't matter. But I understand from a business standpoint. From a business standpoint, I understand why you would make certain choices around what arbitrary lines you draw around what people can and cannot do in your game. Because let's be honest, it's fairly arbitrary what cards you can and cannot put in a deck. Because if they were physical cards, you could do whatever the hell you want, really. But yeah, it's to divide time and money and effort and all that sort of stuff to get your final product. So I understand why they have to do that.
Well, In the future, who knows? I mean, this is only a beta. Who knows? We may end up finding ourselves with a whole bunch of random different kind of combinations. But in every TCG that's out there that I have seen, there is, generally speaking, actually I take that back because there's a couple that now come to mind, but generally speaking, you have the different orders and then you have a class of cards that sits in the middle that everybody can pick from. And I say generally speaking because what's the first one that comes to mind that doesn't do that?
Magic.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's kind of my point. My point is, when it comes to physical card games, one of my favorite quotes is that texts belong to the readers, not the authors. Okay? And if you take a very, very sort of broad concept of text, card games are a text in that sense. So if this was to be a physical card game, I guarantee you the players would make order chaos decks just because they can. Because once it's physical, it belongs to them. The designers no longer have any control over it. Yeah, as I said, arbitrary lines are drawn up because of development time, because of thematics and all that sort of stuff.
Right. So, to me, what we've got here is, I actually have to say, is probably the now evolving methodology of a lot of CCGs, which is some kind of neutral card that sits in the middle and allows people to play. Magic Online, it doesn't even have it because Magic stays true to its roots to the most part. But, if you look at a game like Faria, you've got a neutral card. What makes that neutral card special is the fact that it is gold-based instead of Faria-based for its resource. You look at Hearthstone. Hearthstone's got its neutral set of cards that everyone can pull from, and then it's got its class-specific cards. Point being, in this, we've got the balance. We got the three. I am going to tell you personally that I really love the design that they've come up with. We've touched in the very first episode, or actually it was the second episode, Barrier for Entry. We touched quite a bit on some of the things that make it very difficult to play the game. So, for example, for me to comment on the artwork, I kind of really need to see it. When my monitor resolution is so insanely large that I have to press Control plus 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 to get the board on my screen, I can't really see the images all that well. So I can only comment on the little bits of images that I have seen and have had the ability to kind of dig a little closer to. To me, I firmly believe that when it comes to their artwork, they stay true to the genre. Nothing really is different there. It's not like they have some particular animations or something going on in the background or anything like that that I have seen. They stay true to the genre. You see a picture and you can tell pretty much just looking at the picture, not looking at all the extra stuff, whether it is chaos, order, or neutral.
Yeah, look, the pictures I find are fairly intuitive. There's some of them that you look at and go, huh? Like there's one of the ones in my what I have dubbed the vampire deck. That's like, it's like a machine of some sort, and it's a support card, and it's drilling for oil, what I'm assuming.
I thought it was a trebuchet.
Oh, okay. Sure.
See, this is a small problem.
Some of the artwork is a bit, yeah. Some of the artwork isn't quite as intuitive, but other stuff you look at it and go, yeah. And it follows very much the same sort of artistic style, if I can call it that a lot of physical card games do. It's the fact that this is the 2D picture, this is what it's called, and the picture is going to basically be what it is. If it's called Training Dummy 10, it's pretty obviously a training dummy. And there's either 10 of them, or it looks slightly different to Training Dummy 9, and slightly different to Training Dummy 11. End of the day, that's the sort of tried and true system of doing artwork for card game.
Yeah.
If it's called Baron Rivendell or whatever, you want it to look like. It is what it says it is.
Right.
And yeah.
Well, like I said, in this particular case, they haven't done anything that makes it any different. They've stuck tried and true. So that's
Yeah.
not where their innovation is. That's not where they have made the changes that set them apart from other people. Now, there are certain cards that are rare. There are certain cards that are common, that is built into the system, but that's built into most TCGs. In fact, I can't even think of a TCG that doesn't have some kind of, common rare sort of philosophy to it.
You can probably find a few. In fact, there are a few, but the rarity system is more about it's a system for monetization as opposed to a system for card playing because and a system to disperse stats on cards as well.
Yeah.
So there's systems in which you don't need to have common, uncommon, rare, mega rare, super rare, all that kind of crap.
Right.
Um, but at the end of the day, it's a system used to both denote the power of the card, but also to generate extra revenue for the company itself. So it makes sense that you have stuff like that.
Well, yes, but I mean, there is some tiering system involved there because if, for example, when we talk back in the in older shows about the vanilla bear, vanilla drop bear, you've got a 2-mana creature, 2 resource creature that gives you 2/2, be it to attack, to a defense, be it to butterflies, to ice pies, whatever. It's a 2/2. It's the standard card for which weights and measures can be put. So if you have a 3-mana card, it needs to have something that is exceptional above what would be the baseline.
Yeah.
And it can vary, you could, for example, have a 3 card that's a 3/1 but has a special ability, like the ability to drill through your graveyard. Although, in all honesty, if that is only costing you 3 resources, I have to wonder why. Because the ability to drill through your graveyard and actually use a card should have a little bit heavier weighting to it. But again, it depends on the system and the design.
And the game. But yes.
The system and the design, the intent behind what the whole thing is. But yes, so when it comes to the legendary, quote unquote, systems of legendary common blah, there is something there in all of them, whether it's how many cards are printed in the physical games, and it could even be how many packs have been opened with this item in it, thus denoting whether or not it should be generated sometime in the next week or not for the next pack that gets opened. All of that can actually be built into a design for a program.
Yeah.
It really
and,
can.
and it allows for an artificial measuring stick for balancing as well, which I think is the main reason why a lot of companies use that sort of system. Is that it gives not only the designers but also the players a measuring stick for mechanical value and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I referred back to the vanilla drop bear, because that's what I think of when I think of that kind of viability, is I go immediately back to what is the base measure. And, you have your vanilla drop bear kind of a thing. And then you get things like the Chillwind Yeti and you start crying because the Chillwind Yeti is so bloody awesome. But anyway.
Breaks everything. Yeah.
Breaks all the stuff. But, that kind of imbalance is what you want to bring into the game. So we discussed, like I said, in a previous episode, we understand the point behind having the board and the graphics that they are designed when it comes to Battle for Gia. We have said that it is too small, making it very difficult to read. And we've made mention of the fact that the fonts are a little complicated and that it's a little difficult to read text, especially when it starts to squish and, all the different directions. Now, all of the stuff that we made mention of on that show, and if you want to check that out, go back and watch that previous episode, was actually addressed by the designers. And they made some comments about that. Would you like to share that, Dr. Marshmallows?
Oh, I didn't know we were sharing. I won't get the actual email, but I'll give you the gist. The gist was simply that, look, they're aware of these issues now, and they're going to look into implementing some of the fixes that we proposed, and going into some of their own. But mostly, it's about increasing the user experience and actually relating to feedback.
Exactly.
Showing that they got the feedback and that they're willing to at least try some stuff to see if they can increase the user experience.
Right, which now leads me into the key part of the UI. Now, a lot of people think that when it comes to the UI, in the end, it's just the board you play your cards on. And that's not the case. We're also talking about the accessibility of the application itself. So, for example, in a game like Hearthstone, you click start or you double click Hearthstone, it starts an application and you're guided through being able to play the game. When it comes to Battle for Gia, you're given a website in which to look at things. So, when you first go to the website, is it actually user friendly? Is it not user friendly? And to be perfectly honest, they're on a good roll, but there are certain areas that make the user experience challenging, not exciting. Now, it's all a matter of implementation. So if we went to HQ in Battle for Gia, you are presented with a visual spewing board of smorgashy board stuff. I mean, you have a shield hanging up. You have like cards thrown out on a table. You have this like
You have a glowing
floating
telegram.
You have a glowing telegram, which is not actually a telegram, it's a map.
So it is.
And yet they have the names over all these different things. And you instinctively, both Marsh and I did the exact same thing. We kept trying to click the name. And it's like, why can't I click the name? Exactly. We tried so hard. And I'm like, well, I originally thought, okay, this is beta. The names aren't working. It must be broken. Until I moved my mouse ever so slightly and it highlighted something. And I went, wait, is this in relation to the name underneath it or the one above it? So at first glance, there is almost a desire to, and I take my hat off to them as designers. They wanted to present to you you're opening your binder of doom and you were presented with these amazing things. You've got, rank listings available, the ability to just jump right into your deck. You can go jump into the storyline that's going on. I mean, you have all of these things presented to you right in this really beautiful visual. I honestly like the artwork style that they've used for the HQ, but it is so full of stuff that it gets a little lost in the user experience. Yeah, it does. So I think literally all of the problems could be solved by making it bigger and spreading things out a little bit more. I mean, in the end, this is a web-based game. So they want to make certain that there is the ability to, say, play it on your little iPad or your Galaxy Android or whatever device it is you want to play it on. And they want to make it an accessible thing. And I get that. But there needs to be some other option for those of us who have bigger monitors. And most gamers have bigger monitors. I mean, I'm a 1920 to start. I could go bigger, but I am choosing not. However, I know somebody who plays at a 2450. So, if they're going to play the game, it's going to be this big on their screen. Perhaps the secret and the answer to solving this problem is, I don't know exactly which engine they're using to create this, because there are actually quite a few engines out there that use a JavaScript compatibility and Flash compatibility and ActionScript. And there's things that you can build browser-based games through very simple, easy, not necessarily intuitive, but, workable systems and game engines. So I don't know which game engine this is based on. And it's not like they come out and tell you. So I can't tell them if there's an easier way of saying, if monitor equaled this big, blow stuff up. I mean, I can't quite answer that one. And although there are ways to do checks and things like that, but having an option to have more real estate, because most people don't play on an 800 by 600 anymore. Most people don't even play on a 1024 by 768 anymore. That's most people. I mean, even laptops in today's day and age have a larger size.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
worry. Go ahead.
Even tablets generally, they're getting pretty big. Just saying.
They are getting big, but you can have an incredibly huge monitor, but use it at a very small resolution. It's a matter of what works best for the individual. Now, if you could, would you agree, actually, let me put it this way. Would you agree that if they had just made things bigger, everything would just make it so much easier? Just in general across the board? Because I have problems right now with the deck builder because things are so small and contained. It is so small, and I'm sitting there going, I can't even read the cards that I've already picked up so I can make other viable choices, and I don't have everything in front of me, and I can't get a real good view on it. So if they made things a little bigger, do you think that would solve a lot of the issues that we have with it?
Yeah, look, I think as far as I'm aware, like you come into some issues making things bigger, like sorry, really bad sexual innuendo, slowly slipping into my speech here. But to make things bigger, you need to have higher resolution assets. Is this not correct?
Yes. Or you can use assets that are vectorized, in which case it really doesn't make a difference what size you make them because vectorized images scale so well.
Right. But that puts an extra layer of development and an extra layer of, extra set of people you need to pay to do stuff, extra set of this, extra set of that. While I agree that making everything bigger would solve a lot of issues, can you expect something like that from a more, let's go with the word indie, a more indie developer of card games? Wouldn't you agree that the first priority should be about thematics and mechanics first over how big it can be?
If you have the most awesome game in the world and people can't read the text or see the pictures, what difference does it make? You need to present an environment where usability works. Now, you can sit there, and I understand that you have a different background than I do in this. If you have someone making these beautiful pieces of artwork for these cards, and some of the cards are visually stunning, and I want to really see them, oh no, they fit so well with what they are. It is thematically, it's like whoever their artists are nailed the theme so bloody well. Just looking at some of them, I sit there and go, because they got it just right. And then I'm like, that card so goes in my deck because it's awesome. And I will admit, I am one of those people who will occasionally make a deck just designed on how pretty the cards are, not on the functionality. Don't hate me, Marsh. I'm weird.
Of course you do. No, it's common. I hate to say that it's common among female gamers, female card players, but it really is.
Yeah. So when it comes down to the artwork, someone did not make that artwork as small as it was to start. They didn't sit there and design these absolutely elegant things to fit on the back of a Post-it note. No. So the artwork is coming in a different format. So all they would have to do is, instead of going, be this tiny, just go, be this big. Shrink to this size instead of this size.
Yeah, look, I don't disagree. I'm saying, is it functional to ask them to do that?
It depends on, like I said, the engine that they have used. And this is why I say, when it comes to building a game, the number one thing you need to think about is the end result. Is the user going to make use of this? Is it going to be a viable option? Is it going to be something that is going to be usable by the player? And right now, their concept may be to hit the tablet market. I have the game on my tablet right now.
Of course you do.
I can't use this. I can't get it to move to actually play the game.
Really?
Really. So I unfortunately feel that they haven't quite hit this, if that was their agenda. And if their agenda was to be more just purely browser-based, etc., then they really need to pay attention to the fact that the browser world is based a lot on resolution of someone's monitor, especially if you're offering a full screen mode. And I think I'm hoping, this is me really hoping, because I'm going to stress again for people who don't quite get this, I love this game. I have been playing it now for many weeks, and the more I play it, the more I find myself really, really enjoying it. But I also find myself being tripped at little tiny hurdles that make my gameplay experience frustrating, that make me go, never mind, I'm just going to close the browser, screw it, I'm done with it.
Play again tomorrow.
I'll try it again tomorrow. Exactly. And it comes down to the fact that everything is compact. And it is too compacted. Yeah. The board you play on, as we showed in that one episode, especially in the introductory episode, is so small, but full of so many tiny little titillating images that are sent there to do accents that actually distract a player from understanding, oh, if I really need to turn down the sound, please add a volume slider, guys, please. Oh my goodness.
Instead of on or off, those are your options. Done.
Yes, because I want to listen to the music without having to go into my system mixer and turn it down, because not a lot of people know how to do that. So, the volume, oddly enough, not everybody is as gifted as you are in the use of computers, Dr. Marshmallows.
Okay.
Fritching. So, because of the fact that it's so busy, things are missing. Nothing highlights or directs you to, hey, this is how the UI is actually built. Now we get into the thing that kind of slightly irritates me.
Okay. What is the thing that kind of slightly irritates you, my dear?
You and I had discussed this before we came on the show a couple of weeks ago and before we did a recording. There is a chat currently available for people to use.
Yeah. There is.
But it's not integrated into the game. So
it doesn't really work half the time either, but
well, that's the thing, I went to go bug something because there are certain things I feel really strongly about. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to let them know that this is going on. And I went to bug it, and unfortunately the support didn't work either. So I'm assuming that the support in beta itself. So trying to give feedback is really complicated. Yeah. You kind of have to go to the forums if you want to give feedback. I haven't put them on the forums yet because that test comes next week.
Look,
but yes.
I feel having the chat removed from the game, like I think I'd prefer the game, just no chat at all. None. Just get rid of the chat bar. Aside from the fact that it only works intermittently, I feel as though the game would be better off with no chat at all. Simply because there's no reason to have to talk to your opponent. You can't say, oh, sorry, need to BRB 2 minutes because you only get a minute to do your turn anyway. You can't, there's no point going, oh, good play, because the next play is already done by the time you go to talk to them. And not only that, you have to have the chat open and working to chat to them, but your opponent needs to have their chat open as well to see if you've said anything in chat. Doesn't pop up or anything like that. No. Functionality. I don't think it has a functionality within the game at this point. So I'd rather see it be gone than have to put extra resources into making it work better.
See, I agree with that, except if you were to go with that, I would stipulate there would need to be one condition. I want the ability to track the last 5 people I've played against.
Fair enough. I think you can do that.
That is it. Because the reality... Hopefully nothing serious. Was it your sanity?
Oh, no, that's lost. It's not dropped.
The chat itself is a really good idea, but you're right. Right now, there's no need for it. There's no purpose to it. And to be frank, I would rather them spend the time developing a much user-friendly UI for their site. I like their site design, although
Yeah.
I think too many games go with that, we must go dark and black and red in color, rawr. And you don't necessarily need to do that. Not really. But, it fits the sort of thematic feel that they want to have for the end of the world, apocalyptic end of the universe kind of a situation that they're
Yeah.
presenting with their IP, which is great. But there is too much.
Yeah, the end of a lot of our conversations does come down to there's too much. Like,
And that's the thing. I wonder if the too much thing would disappear if it wasn't so smushed.
Yeah.
If it wasn't so pushed together, I think things would change because real estate opens up opportunities. And that's basically what you're fighting for in your game. Every bit of real estate available in your game should be put to a good purpose. If you are making your game just sit in the dead center of the screen and it just be a giant picture on the outside that no one ever uses or anything, that real estate is wasted real estate.
No, I agree. I'm a big fan of, if it doesn't serve a function, it shouldn't be there. What you consider a function and what I consider a function can be wildly different. But if it doesn't serve a function at all, it has no point in being there.
Well, exactly. And there's also if it has a function and the function is very specific. For example, I'm just going to go back to the volume surrender key. The surrender flag is right next to the volume and everything. How am I supposed to realize that that's actually a part of the gameplay mechanic instead of the options for the game settings itself?
It does ask you. It does
ask you, yes. But let's say...
In which case you go, shit, didn't mean that. Oh, mute. Oh, where is it? Yeah.
I've yet to get that frustrated with it. But, the game itself, it's just... So much stuff is there. And I think it may have something to do with the engine choice that they've made. And I do not want to see this game fail because of users getting frustrated with trying to play the game, not the game mechanics itself. Because the game is fun. It is quick. It is... every time I play a game now, I've learned something new. I get a kick out of the pictures that people have for their icons. I enjoy looking at the different feats that are available and seeing how much further I am from, achieving my next achievement. I enjoy what this game brings. What literally holds me back is the UI. That's it. That's the most frustrating part of the game. The mechanics itself, I'm slowly starting to understand. I do believe that still some things are lost in translation. No need to go over it again. We've mentioned it. But the honest to goodness style and purpose and what makes this game different, it's quick skirmishes. If you get a maximum of 8 turns, I would be really shocked because someone's going to be dead by turn 5 or turn 6.
Yeah.
That's how it works in this. And the turns are so fast, it's insane. You don't take any time to put your deck on the board. You don't take any time to do anything fancy like move a piece here, move a piece there. It's already presented to you. You're just deciding what you're attacking with and what you're defending with, whether or not you want to give it a bonus. And that's it. It makes the game... I literally just can't stress how much the concept of the game is fantastic. Unfortunately, the UI lets itself down. And I don't want to see this. I do not want to see this game fail because the UI is just a little bit too much. There is something to be said for simplicity. If you were to strip away all of the beautiful accents, the gold leafing here and there, the little pieces that make things look a little bit 3D, if you were to strip all of that fanciness away, would people still want to play this game? And I think the answer is yes. So,
no, I agree.
Less attention on the fanciness, more attention on, okay, this is how I can actually do stuff, the better. Now, this does not mean that they can go back and very easily completely redo their UI. But I do want to throw an idea out to them because, again, we never offer our condolences without offering gratitudes in return.
I don't think that's the right use of those words.
No, it isn't. Not in any way, shape, or form. But, we don't beat a game up. We don't beat a game up without giving, some support or direction for how to improve.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the thing. They're in a really bad situation, in my opinion. They have a relatively fixed idea for their UI design. This goes for website design. This actually goes for gameplay board design. It goes for art design for all of the cards. A lot of it is fixed in. That's not what they're beta testing now. They're not really beta testing that. It's, can the cards work together? Is there gameplay problems? And I ran into this problem in a game I played earlier today. I ended up having more command points to spend than I had. It was brilliant.
Oh, that happened to me twice today. It's rage-inducing.
It is. But, that's the kind of stuff they're beta doing. So they can't really go back and say overhaul their site because that's lost development time. That's not the key.
Yeah.
However, it can be something that holds them back in actual full-on release. My suggestion is to not take the beta tag off for a while. Now, The Secret World, which is an MMO, did something interesting. They came across their deadline for release, and they brought the game out, and the usability screwed them.
It was a bit trash, yes.
It was horrific. However, in a later patch, they fixed one of the biggest issues with that usability problem, and it's completely changed the game. It is different than what it once was. And in fact, it is now one of my favorite MMOs because they took the time to go back and fix the problem. Now, Unfortunately, that came so late that people had to do second chances. And most people don't want to give a game a second chance, especially if they had such a frustrating time to begin with. So I would make certain, in fact, I would recommend taking a survey of all the people who are currently using your game and ask them, is this too small? Is it too big? What can we do to improve the UI side of things? Ask the users directly in some kind of survey, reward them with some kind of booster pack or something for people who have participated, or, randomly select somebody and give them 10 ingots. That kind of interaction is going to give you more feedback than anything else. And in fact, if you're not asking your users what they want when it comes to UI design, what are you doing? These are the people who are going to be putting money in your pocket. Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
However,
No,
also keep in mind that just because someone says they want something doesn't mean it is what they need in a game. And that is the hardest thing.
To give it to them.
Exactly. It is one of the hardest lines for a developer to walk. The ability to say, I am going to bring this to you. Trust me, this is what you need. So you can sit there and go, well, Josie, Pseudo, Marsh, you guys are saying we should change things up, make things bigger, change the fonts to make them more legible, or do this or that. We don't think it needs to be done. And you know what? That's okay. But do understand that if a user gets frustrated trying to access something and it comes up as a 404 page, which has happened.
Still happening.
And it's still happening. And that's in the Souls section. Instead of a 404 page, under construction or something. Because that makes an awful lot more sense than a 404. A 404 to me means this does not exist. It does not work. It shouldn't even be showing up as a link for me to click. That's good design practice. If, however, you want people to see what it would look like and just say this is fake information or this is a prototype of what we're looking at doing, that's a different story. But if I click on something, I should never run across a 404 on a website. Ever. Period.
Well, unless something is actually broken.
Well, that's the thing. That's what you think of immediately. You don't think, oh, this is under construction. You think, it's broken.
Yeah.
So, but yes, So that's that. That's a bit of the coverage of the UI thing. It's a little bit of a suggestion.
Pseudo soapbox.
Well, in the end, it's the users who play the game. You know, I actually, let me point an interesting example out, okay? User interfaces come in a variety of manners. For example, a lot of people are used to a GUI because a lot of people are used to Windows. They're not used to command prompt kind of things. So a lot of people like to be able to use their mouse to control what they're looking at. That's one thing. However, there was a system that was developed. Nicely done. But there was a system that was developed with the intent to not let people use their mice. It was specifically for the keyboard because it actually improved productivity. And it was a UI that was designed, believe it or not, for airport systems, for reservation systems. And the design, it took a couple of years to build it, but in the end, they chose not to go with a fancy GUI because that was not the point. The point was speed. The point was trying to get everything processed as fast as you possibly could because time lost is money lost, especially in the airport world. And I'm going to throw that out here. Time lost with people trying to figure out how to get things accessed or trying to figure out or view things or find what they're looking for will turn people off. And unfortunately, in today's day of browser games where anybody and their brother seems to be coming out with games, you need to step up and excel. And I think these guys can do it because they've got such a brilliant idea. I just don't want them to get lost in the crowd. I'm worried that they will.
Yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head. It's a time factor for a lot of people. Like, there's this amazing piece. It's a documentary. I'm not going to tell you to acquire it by illegal means, but I believe it's only been shown in the UK and in Australia at this point. It's called The People Who Make Us Fat, and it's all about the fast food industry. And there was this huge thing in the second episode about how if you take 1 second across, let's go with McDonald's. You take 1 second from the process of ordering to the process of getting the actual food to the customer. 1 second saves or increases profiteering by 15%. So it increases your profit by 15% to take 1 second off the process of ordering to completion. And something can be said very much between, like for card games and stuff like that, or just games in general. If you reduce the need to input extra commands, look for stuff, but anywhere between actual playing and engagement and having to do that screwing around sort of stuff. Any time that you can reduce in between that is time for more people to actually be playing your game and to be enjoying it, and therefore giving it better reviews, therefore getting more revenue because more people are buying, and so forth and so on.
Exactly. And in the end, what is the point of a game? Bring entertainment and to bring the developers at least some kind of ability to pay for bread on their table. You know, if you're really lucky and you hit that next big thing, congratulations. You know, if you're the next Angry Birds, or if you're the next Hags, or if you're if you're the next whatever, congratulations. But that's not the reality. You're fighting against so many games that are out there. And if our waiting list of people who want us to look at their card games is even a hint of the amount of TCGs that are out there, you need to push and be that much better. And the thing is, I again will stress, you all who build this game have such an amazing concept. To see it get lost because of just something that is frustrating for the user, trying to access something and not being able to see it, or not being able to find out how you really access something, it would be heartbreaking to me, because you guys you've got it. It's just, you got to present it in a manner that is so much easier to chew. You know, keep it simple to start. If you need to strip back the graphics to start, do so. But in the end, if I have problems playing your game because I can't see it very well, Or I go to play the game and I almost lose my eardrums because the music is so loud. Something's wrong. Because do you know how difficult it is to go escape, exit in a client compared to how easy it is to click X on that browser? I don't want them to lose out because of something so simple like that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah. Them's my thoughts.
Them's your thoughts?
Them's my thoughts.
Fair enough. So, we'll remove the soapbox from under Pseudo now. Oh, look, it was very colourful. What a great box. No, they're just my contact lenses, but anyway. Look, I think that at the end of the day, design often plays a bigger role in accessibility and playability toward card game than the actual card game does itself. Because the first step towards playing a card game is interacting with that UI. And if you're immediately put off by any of those concepts, either the starting screen, the ability to access, anything like that, if you're immediately put off by that, and then like the card game is just good, as opposed to amazing, oh my god, then you have to do that internal weighing up of, is this going to be worth my time versus my engagement factor? You know, how much screwing around am I going to have to do to get my fun out of this? And if those equations don't add up, people don't play your game. End of the day. It's a brutal way of looking at it. Like, people should never come to me to ask about their game because I'm a brutal person. Like, aside from the fact that Pseudo has done it, because I'm a brutal person. But if you're not good at taking constructive criticism, I am not the guy to go to, because I'm a zero-sum sort of person. And end of the day, if the equations don't add up between my time and the fun I'm getting out of it, it's just not going to happen, I'm afraid. And there's just those really little niggly things, like those tiny things that lots of people, you don't think of consciously. But at the end of the day, you go, oh my god, this is so annoying, and then you don't pick it up for like 2 or 3 weeks because it was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah. That literally sums it up. And the thing is, tiny little niggly things add up.
Oh yeah.
Oh boy, do they add up.
I'm gonna get a quote in here that I was talking about in our pre-show, but the reason why we point all this sort of stuff out, it's like a fish in water. You don't, if you're the fish inside this giant lake, you don't realize that the lake's around you because it's always been there. If you're the designer designing the game, you don't realize these sort of really niggly things that sort of don't make sense to everyone else because you're the person that put them there. You're the one that's been experiencing it from the start. Exactly. It's when someone points it out to you, someone rips the fish out of the lake, you realize that it's there because it's not there anymore. You don't understand that you need water to breathe because the water's always been there. That's the reason why people need to point these things out.
Absolutely. And again, we're both critical because we actually care. And it's such a weird thing to say, but in all honesty, if we didn't think that Battle for Gia had something going for it, we would not have made episode 3. We would have killed it at episode 2. And believe me, I am prepared for future games that we look at for us to kill it in episode 2. If they cannot reach that barrier to entry, there's no point for us to look at something. Now, as we said, when it comes to Battle for Gia,
one of those games actually.
We might, but
we might.
We were not going to go into that right now. But, you know, what it comes down to is if a person can't really play the game because the barrier to entry is so high, there's nothing that is worth us spending time looking at that point in time because they need to go back to drawing board and figure out what's up. And believe me, we'll be fair because as you saw, one of the biggest barrier to entries to Battle for Gia is the language translation and the implementation of the UI. That is one of the biggest barriers to entry, but it is an easily fixed problem. It might take more time. It might take a redesign of the UI. But again, I don't want to see such an amazing concept for a TCG disappear because someone decided that they like to have an on-off for their sound and have the volume at maximum.
Yeah.
You know?
Look, I don't want people to think that we're pandering to developers or anything like that at this point. What we're truly interested in is the promotion of card games in general.
Absolutely.
So any positive, anything that contributes positively to the aspect or area of card gaming in any of its forms is within our best interests. And
Absolutely.
as people that do card game based shows, of course the development and the achievement of all card games is within our best interest. So that's why we do these sorts of things. So we're cruel to be kind sort of stuff.
Exactly. And that's also why I try to make certain that you guys understand I really do like this game. It's just we are going to be those people who point out you're wearing two different colored socks. You may think they're both gray, but they're two different colors of gray. We're the ones who are looking at this because in the end, we want card games to be successful. That's what it comes down to. But honestly, there are some card games that will never make it past an episode 2.
Yep.
And we will still cover them because we want to prove a point. We want to have, and this is going to sound so crazy, I want to have a very primal, animalistic survival of the fittest card games. I want the card games that bring that innovation, like Battle for Gia skirmishes. Crazy concept. Love it. Never seen it before. And I think they got it right with their implementation of it. It's just, again, the little tiny niggly thing of the UI. But if they hadn't gotten it right, we would let them know. And if it was just the same old as some other game that's out there, and there's nothing new or innovative, we're going to tell you that too.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the end, like Marsh says, we want to see TCGs successful. So, again, to you who developed Battle for Gia, absolutely love your concept. Just remember, if the user gets frustrated in a browser, it is so much easier to click X than to try to go and hit escape and find options. So you need to be very cautious. What one culture enjoys is going to be vastly different than what another one does. And you are breaching many, many cultural markets, going from, Spanish to Portuguese to Italian to English.
And the different English speakers.
It is a very challenging time. But you guys have something that can be successful. Just remember, if your user can click X because they're frustrated by one thing, it's very hard to keep your audience. It's a very dangerous market to get into. But again, I think as long as they fix those tiny, tiny, niggly problems that add up to something massive, they're going to have a winner. But on that note, Dr. Marshmallow.
Right.
Next week.
Next week. All right. So next week, once again, we're defaulting back to Pseudo's area of expertise. We're going to do community content and interactions, which is going to be a very interesting topic for us because everything's in Spanish.
Not everything. They have an English for it.
So it's going to be interesting. You're going to hear me butcher the Spanish language at some point. I am almost sure of it. What?
You don't speak Spanish?
No, I don't. No, Spanish is one of the very few languages I don't speak. What else? Oh yeah, so we're doing that, and we'll also be doing our summarization of our review because next week is indeed our last week of this 5-week process.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't feel like 5 weeks, but it's most definitely been 5 weeks, and we'll be hopping on to another game, which we should be able to tell you about next week. I'm still waiting for confirmation, and basically it's a race at this point who gets their stuff to us first.
Yep.
But there is a giant list which we will be going through. And my calculations is at 5 weeks a review. I think we have like a year and a half worth of content in just the people that have contacted us so far. So
Hi,
yeah, it's going to be interesting.
I love TCGs.
But we no.
But yes, we will. And in the end, the hope is that you have discovered something new, that you find something new, and you find a game that you enjoy. What one person enjoys does not necessarily mean it's going to be what somebody else enjoys. But honestly, give the games a shot. Remember, you have the ability to go there, click acquire ingots, and at the very bottom, apply a code, MMOBuff-Top Draw, and you will get yourself a free booster pack worth of ingots, which is fantastically kind of them.
Yes. So they've been very kind to us, giving us a freebie for all of our viewers. So it doesn't matter if you're a live viewer or one of our YouTube viewers, go ahead and put in that code and you'll get yourself a free booster pack of whatever booster you want.
Yep. And it's so worth it. Honestly, it is well worth it, especially if you can get a friend to play with you, because you sit there and go, oh, how did you do that? You're mean. I hate you. Oh, it's great. Basically what I say to Marsh every time we play a game against each other. Oh, Marsh, how could you do that to me? You evil, evil man, I believe is what I usually say. Because I'm a horrible person. Yes, because you're a horrible person. But yes, on that note, Dr. Marsh, an absolute joy, an absolute pleasure. Hearts to the world. And we will see you all on the flip side on Wednesday next week for Top Draw.
Yes, indeed. Ciao.
Blizzard forecast.
Yeah. I knew what you meant. It's okay. Okay. Woosah. So it's going to be a 12-year-old movie reference, but woosah. Woosah.
Wow. And on that note, it leaves me to simply say, Marsh, will you sing one song just to send us out?
Well, I want what now?
Can you sing us a song?
Put me on the spot now, haven't you? I'm a little teapot, short and stout. Here is my handle, here is the start. Wait, other way around. When I get a steamed up, then I shout, tip me over, pour me out.
Toodle pip.